Game Freak Forever, and this is my show. Now, normally I talk about my pickups or consoles that I may have picked up or things that spark memories for me. But today I just essentially wanted to talk about my journey from the retro games that we look at as retro stuff all the way up to the current stuff that shaped me, the evolution of games and how it's made me as a person. I was thinking about a retro versus current gen and then just kind of going through, but I just wanted to talk about the things that have brought me to where I am. The first game I remember playing is Super Mario Brothers as a little kid, and then all the way up to God of War 3 being one of my favorite games to play of all time. You know, it's just that I see the changes in technology, and I see a need for people to understand how important, how essential it is. So I just wanted to show you some of the games that meant something to me, that sparked something in me. Now, I won't be able to cover all the games that meant something to me, but I just essentially wanted to show you some of the games. Like I was saying, Super Mario Brothers for the Nintendo. I still remember to this day when I first played the game as an arcade game at the darn store. I remember just stepping up one day and a guy just came up to me and he saw that I was trying to reach up to be able to play the game. I remember being about 6 years old, and it just spoke to me. I don't know what it was, but I knew that something was sparked inside of me that was a little different. You know, some people want to be artists, some people want to play basketball, some people want to play football, some people want to build things. I already knew from that day I wanted to be a part of video games. It was just there. So then as my love grew for video games, I wanted to take on new challenges, and then that's when I found the game of Mega Man 2. Like I told you, another one of my favorite games. It's definitely up in my top 5. It's gotta be, because I was even playing that today on my NES emulator, and I'm pretty much at the end of the game, and I was just thinking to myself, man, I was only about 11 or 12 years old when this game came out, and I just had a deep passion, a deep love to be able to essentially go through all these stages, all these platforms, and managed to get to the end of the game, which was a challenge for me. And even to this day, it's still a challenge, because I started thinking about, as I got towards the end of the game, you got to fight all the robots again. I mean, you not only had to fight them the first way through, then you had to go through all these extra bosses that Dr. Wily created. Then you got to fight them all again, and then fight him. And if you don't do it right, then you got to go all the way back. And I found a little trick in there that if you don't click continue after you beat the 8 robots a second time, and you just click select the stage, it'll take you all the way back through the Dr. Wily stages again. So you lose all that progress, all that time. So I thought that was just the craziest thing. But yeah, video games have always kind of just been a part of my life, been a part of who I am. I think essentially it's in my DNA. And I'm glad I have a lot of understanding people around me, family, friends, and loved ones that understand that. Now, the next game that I wanted to talk about that was big to me, that sparked something in my mind, out of all the Marios, to me, this is the favorite Mario that I love the most. Some people say 1, some people say 3, some people say 2. I say Super Mario World, because I remember the day of Christmas, just like it was yesterday. I still remember picking this game up, putting it in. I still remember the theme music, mostly because I have a Super Nintendo now. But also I just remember the music, how it was, and it just sparked something. Now, the next game that I wanted to talk about was Golden Axe. And the reason why Golden Axe for the Sega Genesis, well, actually it started out at the arcades and it worked its way to the home consoles on the Sega Genesis. It meant so much to me because it was like one of the first multiplayer type of games where you could immerse yourself in with your friends or your buddies, and y'all could include each other. You know, you had the dwarf, you had the warrior, and then you had the lady. You all basically could play together, and I thought that was so cool, because that was like one of the big games that just kind of spoke to me. And so when I saw that game, I immediately wanted it for my Sega Genesis at the time, when I did have one as a kid. And I even went on and bought the downloadable one for my 360 and my PS3 just because of the the nostalgia, the feeling that you get playing through those games. It was something about being able to use the magic, being able to use those powers, being able to work together to get to the end, defeat a boss, and just awesome. It's just crazy. And then I started to move on to other games and other platforms or other consoles throughout my journey. It was PlayStation 2. I loved my PlayStation 2. I mean, man, I waited long and I waited hard for that PlayStation 2. I was already clear into my 20s, but I still knew that I had a passion for games. So the next game I wanted to talk about was Grand Theft Auto 3. I thought this game was awesome because of the 3D world. It was the first big open world game that I remember playing, and ironically enough, it was over my cousin's house, and he was so much younger than me. The boy was probably maybe under 10 years old. I think he was like 7 or 8 years old or something like that. And here he is, got one of the most vile, obscene, out of this world kind of games in it. But the only thing about it was I love the feeling of being able to control your own world. You could go around, do whatever you wanted to do. And I mean, they took everything that you could think of. They took, all the vile things in this world and just put it all in one world, and you could just go anywhere, do any way you wanted. It was an open world game, so you just was able to immerse yourself completely into the game, do whatever it is that you wanted to do. And I thought that was cool. And then shortly after Grand Theft Auto 3 came Vice City. And like I was telling you guys before in previous videos, I love Grand Theft Auto Vice City because of the Tony Montana, actually the Tony Vercetti on this game. You got Scarface, and then you got the whole Miami Vice, and you got the 80s, and I love the 80s, and I love the music. It was cheesy, it was corny, but it's so mesmerizing, and it gets stuck in your head, and you all of a sudden you hear yourself singing the songs, or you're thinking about those songs, or you're thinking about funny little things that they put into this game. Now, one of my first real action type of games that was immersed with a great storyline that was unforgettable, that quickly drew me in from the snowfall all the way to the top of the building to the very end of the game was Max Payne. And man, when I got Max Payne on my PC, I remember when I first had it on my PC, I just loved this game. I mean, it was a storyline of essentially a cop who lost everything. He lost his wife, he lost his kid, and it was so many crooked things going on, crooked cops and people that was plotting and following his steps, following every move that he was making, essentially trying to find him and take him out. And then also at the same time, he's trying to find the killers, and he's going through all these back alleys and going through all these abandoned buildings looking for the killers, and trying to put all these clues together and trying to figure out. Basically, I hadn't played that many RPG games. It pretty much had some of the elements of RPG in it, but I never really just dove into an RPG game the way I did when I actually got Mass Effect 2, which is the next game that I wanted to talk about. I fell in love with this game. I think I beat it twice. I went through it twice. I probably put in 40 to 50 hours. And I never thought that I was going to be able to play a game like this, because I used to think that RPG games were silly because of the stories and all that, and having to sit up here and having to fight somebody and then wait for them to attack. And Mass Effect kind of took a action RPG side, great story, immerse you in with the storytelling, allowing you to make crucial decisions that change the elements of the game. See, this is where my evolution of playing video games also went to a different level, because this is some place that I've never been to, and I just loved it. I was like, oh my god, I loved every character and every story, and each story has something to tell. Each character has something that tied itself into their planet, into their story, how they got on this ship and why they was on the ship and everything. So yeah, Mass Effect 2 was definitely one of my favorites, and I have 1, 2, and 3, and I loved them all. And the visual, the cinematic elements of trailers and all that just tied itself in together. I mean, I fell in love, deep in love with the game, and it just kind of led me on to want to play other RPGs like the Final Fantasy. I never really played it, but I started immersing myself into that, and then even into Skyrim. And Skyrim, I'm damn near 100 hours in, and I'm still playing that game because it's just so good. It's just like a end to no end. There it seems like there's never going to be an end, but it's so good that it doesn't matter, you know. So now I'm into RPGs, and I've even crossed over to first-person shooter games and more of a third-person shooter type. But I've kind of moved over to that. So I used to just be one-dimensional, but in my elevation or my evolution of playing games, I've crossed over to new dimensions. And so then I started playing other games that I found on my other systems, like Gears of War, which was really the reason that I got my 360 in the first place. And then I started playing other little miniature games, like the downloadable games like Braid, and then let's see, Joe Danger. I was even talking about that game today, how the world is changing. And I'm trying to think of another game that where they use just shadow. The boys covered all in shadow, and it just, the way games are moving and shaping, you can't just be so one-dimensional. And I learned that over the years, over the course of playing video games. And I even have one of my little favorite horror games is Dead Space 2, you know. And I loved 1, but 2 was even better to me because it just took the storyline to another level. Because usually the second game, or the sophomore, or whatever you want to call it, usually is a bad game. But I actually ended up loving this game. I love both of them, beat both of them several times. And then, you know, I love the Grand Theft Auto series. Actually, let's see if I still got that up here. I think I do somewhere. I think it's in the living room. Matter of fact, it is. But yeah, I got Grand Theft Auto, and you know I love Grand Theft Auto. And when I first got my PlayStation 3, it was the first game I got was to play. You know, I got Grand Theft Auto 4, and oh my God, I'm in such anticipation for Part 5, because each time they bring out the game, they always take it to another level. They